Okay, secondary survey, basic theory on it, and then we're actually just going to show the section of the secondary survey from our total emergency scene management video. So in general, secondary survey is only being done when they don't have a life-threatening condition that you're otherwise dealing with that would be dealt with in the primary survey, because if they're bleeding to death, you're focused on that. When they have multiple non-life-threatening injuries, so if they have one thing, like they have a broken wrist, you don't have to check their whole body. But if they have like a broken wrist and a broken ankle, what else is broken? You might as well find out. So they have multiple injuries. You are transporting, so someone else isn't coming to do it for you. If you have paramedics coming, they can do this for you. And medical help is delayed. Look, if you're 5 minutes from a hospital, why spend 10 minutes doing an assessment when you can just get them to the hospital and they can do it there? They're trained in this, they do it better. Generally speaking, you're better off just getting them there on their own. You don't want to spend all this time. It's not the biggest deal. So medical help is delayed. You are transporting. They have multiple non-life-threatening injuries. That's the big thing. For the secondary survey, 3 steps. You have history, vital signs, head-to-toe examination, history, sample, symptoms, allergies, medications, past and present medical conditions, last meal or last intake, and events. Vital signs, you've got level of consciousness, pulse, breathing, and skin condition and temperature, which is shock. And then you have the head-to-toe exam, which frankly is better to explain by showing you. You're going to check everything in their body. You're looking for everything but blood pretty much, because you were looking for the serious bleeding in the rapid body survey part in the primary survey section. You're looking for everything else so you don't get a surprise. You're going to find out if they have like fluid from their ears or if their liver's failing from jaundice and all sorts of stuff. You're looking for surprises. That one's pretty involved. With that in mind, let's show you that section that we looked at before, assuming this person's not going to have anything wrong with them. They're not going to be an emergency, but it'll walk through each of the steps so you can see all these things. Imagining they were conscious and we didn't, because the reality is, if they're unconscious, even if they're breathing, you're not really getting to the secondary survey. You're stuck in primary because you're worried about the life-threatening breathing emergency. That is unresponsiveness. If you're stuck in ABCs, airway, breathing, circulation, you're not getting to secondary survey. We'll assume for the sake of argument, you don't have that problem and we can get to secondary. Okay. We get to the casualty and we're going to walk through the steps of secondary survey. So first, we probably have a pen or a paper and a first aid report form, and we're going to do something called sample. Symptoms, allergies, medications, past or present medical conditions, last meal, and events. So we talk to them, hey, so how are you feeling? What's wrong? And because magically nothing, I don't know what's wrong with me. Okay. And then we ask them, do you have any allergies? And they tell us, and we write it down. Are you on any medications? Are you taking any medications a doctor might need to know? And you write it down. Do you have anything? So I see you had an injury there. Whatever. Is there any? You have any previous medical problems or anything that we might need to notify them at the hospital? Anything that we might need to write down for the doctor? And then you write it down. When was the last time you ate? They're very hungry, super hungry, right? This is actually an important question because if you need to go into surgery, and you have something in your stomach, it can come up and you can choke on it. So you need to record the last time they ate. If it's not an emergency surgery, they're going to want to have them just wait in the waiting room to start for any of that. They'll just have them wait longer because they don't want to deal with a potential complication causing death on the surgical table for something minor. So the last meal thing is actually important, or last intake is important. What happened? How did you get injured? I asked you to lie on the floor. Indeed, that makes sense to me. You write that down. Sample. Okay. After you've done sample, you can then check for vital signs. There's 4. Skin condition and temperature, pulse, breathing, and level of consciousness. This person is conscious. They're conscious. Fantastic. We know that one. We can check for breathing. How's your breathing? How are you doing?
Okay.
I'm not convinced, but that's okay. You're looking for rate, rhythm, and depth. So how quickly are they breathing? What's the rhythm like? Is it normal? Is it irregular? And how deep is it? For the rate, you can look at how many breaths they're having. You could do this if need to be, whatever. You can look at their chest rise and fall. You can have a watch and count to 30 seconds. Take out your phone, put it on stopwatch, whatever. How many breaths per 30 seconds, multiply by 2. Or if you can't multiply by 2 for whatever reason, then just count for a minute. And then you have the rate per minute because you counted for a minute. Whatever works. So do that, and then we can check for pulse. Now, when you're checking for a pulse, there's 3 locations you can use. You might have to get close for this. We'll find out. So for pulse, the first location would be the radial pulse. A radial pulse is the thumb pulse. So you take two fingers. Don't use your thumb. Your own radial pulse can interfere. And you go right there below their thumb on the wrist. That is the radial pulse. You should feel blood pumping against you when you restrict the flow slightly. Count for 30 seconds. Have a stopwatch, count how many pulses you feel. That's multiplied by 2. That's your BPM, your rate per minute. Yeah? That's pretty much it. Or count for a minute because you don't know how to multiply by 2. That's fine. I only know how to count to 4. Oh no. What happens when I feel 5? It was a great video. Anyways, so we have that. Next, we can check for the carotid pulse. So the carotid is up here basically in the neck. It's not in the jaw. So what we can do is we can go here and we can feel for the carotid. If you don't know where to find the carotid pulse, what you can do, and I'll get closer to a camera for this for you, what you can do is you can take your fingers and you can just put it like everywhere on the side until you feel the thing because you don't know where to find it. Just kind of figure it out. I like to say it's in the same place for everybody, but then you find somebody with a larger or smaller neck than you're used to and you can't find the thing. So just figure it out. So we check for carotid. 30 seconds multiplied by 2 or whatever. You only have to do 1 pulse checkpoint. It's just if you can't find one, you can find it somewhere else. If they're talking to you, they have a pulse. Next would be brachial. So we have radial, carotid, brachial. A brachial pulse. You go all the way up the arm here. All the way up the arm there. You're going to go on the underside of the bicep. So you have the bicep muscle. You go underneath. Yeah, you're going to feel that. And then you press in. So we have to go into the bicep, underneath, and then press in and restrict blood flow. And if you're feeling the pulse properly, they'll probably feel their middle and ring fingers tingle a bit. Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, because you're cutting off that part of the blood flow. Okay? Once again, 30 seconds, multiply by 2, or count for 60. Okay, so we've done that. And then, of course, we have the skin condition and temperature, which is your standard shock check for skin condition and temperature. They are warm and dry. I am cold and clammy. Yeah. Okay, good. Now you've done that. The last part of the secondary survey is the head-to-toe exam. This is different from the rapid body survey. Please lie. Actually, you can head-to-toe exam. You can head-to-toe exam from a seated position too. We're not checking for blood. We are checking for everything else. You're going to start at the head and you're going to go all the way through the body and try to find a surprise. You don't want to get surprised before you lift and move the person. If, like this, all this stuff happens before bone and joint injuries. If it turns out that you thought they broke their ankle, but they also broke their femur, their upper leg, and then you didn't do a head to toe snap, now we have a massive bleed, we got a problem. You're covering all your bases. Okay, so you start at the head. I'm just gonna see if all your bones are together. Tell me if anything hurts. All that looks good, all that's together, hooray. Normally I'd be in front, but then you'd just be looking at my behind and not at the casualty here. Can we see it with GoPro as well? Is that fine? So we're gonna check all the bones in the skull and make sure it's all together. We're gonna check the ears and see if there's fluid leaking. Check the eyes and see if there's any yellowness, jaundice, etc. Check the nose, see if there's fluid going. Look in the mouth. See if there's any sort of bleeding or whatever, discoloration, you can close. See if there's any sort of weirdness going on there. We're going to feel the collarbones, see if there's anything. Oh, we heard ow. Are we injured? You're going to check there, see if there's anything there. We're going to ask them to breathe in and then breathe out. This is going to be looking for what's known as a flail chest. You'll learn more about that in the chest injuries section. Well, I want to see if multiple ribs are broken. We're going to check the arm. And let me know if anything hurts. Just making sure all the bones are together. Everything feels good. Let me know if anything hurts. Nothing? Nothing hurts? Okay. When you're checking the hand, check each knuckle to feel if anything is in pain, inflamed, hurts, isn't working, etc. Don't just modify their bones for them if it's broken. That's a bad idea. What you should probably do is ask them to lift it. So here, lift your shoulder. Also notice I'm demonstrating what to do, because otherwise I could be like, hey, can you just move your elbow? And then they'll do this, right? So whereas an elbow move is this. Hey, can you just move your elbow? Cool. And then can we wiggle the wrist? Fingers? Okay. Nerve function works, no serious pain. I don't have any concern with this arm. Do the same thing on the opposite arm. You can check the same stuff with all this. Any pain? Nothing. When you press in the stomach, if it's hard like a table, that could be massive internal bleeding. If not, then not. Hips, any hurt on the hips? Nothing?
If I just had abs.
It won't, no. No. You could have rock hard abs, they ain't that rock hard. It ain't like a wall, okay? So you can think you're flexing. You injure, they ain't gonna flex that much. So it's a question you get a lot, actually. So legs, same thing, feel down, tell me if anything hurts. Knee okay, well that's good, hooray, huzzah. Let me know if anything hurts. Anything there, okay? I'm not going to take the shoe off because I'm not worried about that right now. It's not necessary. I can feel the temperature inside both feet though. And if they're the same, I'm not that worried about circulation. It's similar to this sort of shock check. If one leg or one foot is very cold and the other's not, I might be worried there's not enough circulation getting to that leg. There might be an injury somewhere in the leg. That's a way to kind of check for shock or check for blood flow without having to look at it. You can use temperature sometimes. Okay, and now let's wiggle the foot. Let's move the knee a bit. Okay, and then can we move the hip at all? Move the hip, move the hip. Cool, okay, so I'm not that worried about this leg being broken or any of that. All this stuff can move. Frankly, I'm wondering if this person is hurt at all, which turns out they're not because this is a demonstration. So that's the secondary survey start to finish. After that, you care for them ongoingly based on what you discover. And we're back. Okay, one thing I want to note, the only place in this entire section that we're looking at with first aid in all these videos, outside of healthcare provider level first aid. So when you're dealing with people in the public, the only place that we have done a pulse check is the secondary survey. We don't do one anywhere else. When someone in the hospital does a head tilt chin lift in the primary, they will often do a simultaneous pulse and breathing check. It's different. The reason why you don't generally have a member of the public check for pulses in a life-threatening situation is because it is difficult for people to find a pulse often on someone who is conscious, let alone someone who is unconscious. And what do you do if someone is breathing but they don't have a pulse? You have no idea. You're not supposed to know what to do. The answer to that question is they have a pulse, you didn't find it. But in a healthcare situation, breathing, no pulse, no breathing, yes pulse, and all those different combinations will change things. I don't want you worrying about that. If they don't have a pulse and they're talking to you, it's because you can't find it. You can find it, okay? If they're conscious, they have a pulse. So that's why it's here, because in the secondary survey, it is implied that they're conscious because they need to be able to talk to you to answer all these questions like you did in sample. Secondary survey.